We have ourselves a championship celebration type episode here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show this week. Join us in the winner's circle. Stay a while. It's going to be a fun one. We break down all of last weekend's matches that led some fantasy managers to some fantasy glory. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 157 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR. We got ourselves a championship type feel on this episode. We're calling it the winner's circle. Join in.
Yes, we are.
Have some fun because it is an exciting time here at the Fantasy Ruckers. Matt Yee, Devin Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee for a special championship celebration edition of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Lots to talk about. Final week of the Fantasy MLR season couldn't have been more exciting. Vandy, Maddie, how you boys feel this week?
Boys, your invite must have got lost in the mail. Your invite must have got lost in the mail because I'm out here in Cancun celebrating the chips. Take a look at that. We'll take a little look at that. Celebrating the chip. But yeah.
Yeah, where the heck was,
I don't know where
was definitely my invitation got lost in the mail.
Must have got lost in the mail, but Vandy, welcome to the winner's circle, bud. Welcome,
You know what? It's one thing to be a winner. And there's another thing to be the double champ.
Let's go.
Dana, is me second belt.
If you couldn't tell, if you're listening or watching the pod this week, the Fantasy Ruckers taking home the title of the official OG League. The first time since we joined together, and we talked about at the start of the year about what was it? Us being the Power Rangers coming together and forming the Ultimate Beast. And we proved with the third leg, we proved to be a force that could not be reckoned with. I threw on and did the responsibility of throwing on the championship jersey, which we'll have our names on it shortly. I don't know if this is a bad omen. People told me at the start of the year I wore this during draft night, and they said this was a bad idea. But it was a good idea because I have it back on, and boy, does it feel good, boys, to have the championship jersey.
Looks like it fits great, buddy.
Boys,
it fits great.
I'm on for a quick while. Can't stay on for the whole show. I just wanted to say greetings from Cancun because I am celebrating this championship well for all three of us. Don't you worry. Mandy, I got a nice little surprise for both you, Ryan, and the people. A little video for you guys to play, congratulating, just the lads and telling people about the celebration. But that's it for me. I got to go back on the piss.
I
enjoy Cancun.
I hope, Maddie, that this is not coming out of the Fantasy Ruckers expenses because, again, we should be there with you if that was the case. Like you said, I think our invite did get lost, and hey, you'll just have to party triple times as hard for this Fantasy Ruckers Championship.
Hey, I got to sign out. We're signing out here.
Maddie, put a couple beers back for me, bud.
Good one, boys. Have a good show, lads.
There you go.
Anything for you, pal. Anything for you. Anything for the champion.
All right. See ya, buddy.
Always. Later, boys. Enjoy the rest of the show. Videos for the rest of the people. Videos for you, boys. Enjoy.
All right. Well, hey, good to see good old Matt. Where the heck was our invite, Vandy?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what mail. I'm just looking at it. I don't. Yeah, I know. It didn't get lost. It must not have got sent.
Yeah, I don't know if Matt forgot to send the Cancun invitation, but I guess he decided that a celebration for him is good enough. But either way, what a fun week we had. Again, a championship celebration type episode here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. We're going to get into it all. On top of talking about the latest news and notes from around the league, obviously the biggest Supreme Commissioner Yee's League update of the year, where we get to talk about all the winners for all of you out there that did take home a fantasy championship. We'll, of course, break down the awesome matches we had over the weekend to decide and determine who is going to be crowned champion this week and this past week 16. We'll break down those matches and then, get to look ahead and make some predictions here without the temptation or the angst that comes with fantasy. We just get a look at this week 17, final week of the MLR regular season, and just not think about fantasy. And
Kind of
for take
weird.
that for what you will. I feel like the withdrawals are going to hit real quick here. It's only been a few days past the end of the fantasy MLR season. I'm already feeling it, but either way, we're going to soak this episode in because, like we said, the Fantasy Ruckers are the champions. We'll talk about it more, Vandy. At my expense, you are a champion in the Listener League, and we have also some other champions to hand out as well. So we'll get into it all this episode, but before we do, if you aren't already, follow us at the Fantasy Ruckers, Instagram, X, Facebook, all that good stuff. Like, subscribe here on the YouTube channel if you're watching on the YouTube page. You can also check out the pod wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe to that as well. Link down below to do so. Join the Discord. Great community over there. And also check out thefantasyruckers.com, the official platform for Fantasy MLR here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. And the fantasy stuff does still continue. We got the weekly challenge and a little bit of a sneak peek here coming up in the Commissioner League's Yee's League update about how you can take part here, maybe even into playoffs and dabble into some
Playoff.
fantasy MLR. But either way, let's get into it and let's talk about the latest from around the league.
News dump.
All right, time for our TFR news dump coming out of round 16, heading into the final week of the MLR regular season. Handful of things to talk about as the standings continue to get solidified as we approach this final week of the season. Teams are clinching playoffs, and there seems to be a clearer and clearer picture on what the playoffs are going to look like. Two teams doing that this past week: the Miami Sharks, making, I believe, their first playoff appearance here, which is exciting stuff. They get to do so and lock up that final spot in the Eastern Conference. So some shifting around here, possibly when it comes to seeding, but the Eastern Conference is all but set. And then on the Western Conference side of things, RFCLA, with a big time win over the weekend, jumps into second place, and they lock up a playoff spot. So that prediction I had at the start of the season, Vandy, about them possibly taking home the Shield this year, it lives on, as it got a little bit dicey there for a little bit. But either way, they have now found their way to the playoffs. So congratulations to the Sharks. Congratulations to RFCLA and all their fans for getting to lock up the enjoyment of the playoff experience here coming up in a couple weeks' time.
Yeah, you know what? Love to see it. I absolutely love to see it. Love to see. Forgot to mention how Utah Warriors, seem to
Don't worry, we'll get into it, but it
lock
does
up the
look nice.
first, or not first round, but the playoffs.
We will. It should be an interesting one there. I already saw that ticket sales are going up. Utah fans are pumped to be having that top seed there going in. Quick announcement here. We do have a midweek game at the coming out of this podcast tonight. We got the Houston SaberCats taking on the Chicago Hounds. It's on ESPN2 tonight. So, hey, make sure you tune in to mainstream channel, secondary mainstream channel when it comes to MLR rugby here coming up on ESPN. Lastly, Vandy, I saved the best piece of news, or I guess in your case, maybe not the best piece of news, a sad piece of news for you. But
Bittersweet.
Paul Lasike, longtime Utah Warrior, has announced that he's hanging up the boots at the end of this year's regular season. The capped USA Eagle, the 2021 Premiership Rugby champion with the Harlequins, will continue being a part of rugby as head coach with the Southern Virginia University rugby program. But as for his career in Major League Rugby and being on the field as a player is going to come to an end. Warrior number one is hanging up the cleats, Paul Lasike.
You know what? I was gonna say I hate to see him go, but you love to watch him leave, but that's just not true. You know what? I'm happy for the guy. He's damn well earned it. I love to see Utah putting on, maybe as a last hoorah, let the man leave with a shield. But either way, a hell of a career, hell of a guy to watch, every week. And thank you for everything, Paul. It's been a pleasure, man.
Hey, it really has been, again, an OG member of this MLR league. I mean, those days when he was in that starting lineup, a mainstay of that Utah starting lineup, it was just so fun to watch the battering ram run through. And in terms of just the fantasy performances he has had in the past,
I was just gonna say, you know
ones.
what? There wasn't a lot of bright spots on Utah minus this year, but you know what? I always felt like I had Paul Lasike, and just a guy. This year's been a little tough for him. Just coming off the bench, and well, actually, not really coming off the bench. Just hasn't.
In and out.
In
Like,
and out, but
he'd
you know
come off the
what?
bench.
Like,
He
guy's
had
just
some
been an
games, he would have
absolute
some spot
staple.
starts. Yeah. This year, Not really fantasy relevant. His highest point performance, 3.8 points.
Yeah.
Coming off the bench. He has actually started only once this season so
Okay,
far.
yeah.
But last year, I mean, that's when he kind of started to taper off from the starting lineup. He had a high of 17.5 in round 12 of the 2024 season,
Yeah.
when he played the full 80, 158 meters gain there, when he was just bashing heads and
Yeah.
running through the middle of that line. So again, Polasike, big part of the growth of Major League Rugby. And yeah, he will surely be missed, but awesome to see that he will still be a part of the rugby community just on the coaching side of things. All right, let's get to now, Vandy. There's no time to waste. Enough sad news. We got to get to probably the most exciting and biggest update, league update of the year.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
All right, hear ye, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yee with a Fantasy Ruckers Leagues update, a big Fantasy Ruckers League update. We'll go down the list. All the fantasy leagues are wrapped up, and we got to give a big congratulations to our fantasy champions. And I think for that, we need some celebratory music. So why don't we get it started here for a special edition of the Fantasy Ruckers Leagues update? Hey, it's a good feeling here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Let's start it off by the winners of the OG League. We talked about it obviously at the top. I have the jersey worn here. The Fantasy Ruckers are crowned your OG League champs. Vandy, Matt, who's partying in Cancun, couldn't have asked to do it with any better people. So, hey, awesome stuff, Andy. We got it done. It got a little bit of hairy there towards the end, but man, was it fun to finally be crowned champion, take down the possibility of John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning potentially going back to back. That was a nightmare for me. So the fact that we were able to take it down, it feels pretty good at that. We'll move on to the listener league. It was you and I going into the listener league finals.
Yep. It sure
And
was, bud.
we were putting in the stats, or I was putting in the stats as the league was going on. And
I
it
was
was just
waiting
Vandy
patiently.
pulling further and further away. And it was a hard pill to swallow. But either way, I wouldn't have wanted to lose to any better dude, a guy that has deserved it, has been on the mission of hunting down not even a championship, but playoffs as a
Playoffs.
whole. And in his first playoff appearance, takes home the very first listener league title. So, as Rugby Morning, John Fitzpatrick put in our Discord channel, he said, "We've created a fantasy monster." And it looks like we have done just that, at least for this year. And Vandy is crowned your Listener League champ. We will have a new roster of people coming through. Of course, to get your ticket into the Listener League, you had to win your original league. So we had the likes of Hawks 58, I Am Sleeves, and of course Rugby Morning, who won the OG League last year. In the Listener League this year, Vandy showed them what's up and took the title here. So you said a little bit at the beginning, Vandy. I'll give you the stage here. What is your acceptance speech when it comes to not only the Fantasy Ruckers Championship, but I'm assuming in your eyes, maybe a little bit more important for you, the Listener League title?
Yeah, you know what? The double champ's great. You know, you love it, but you got to be humble at victory. You know, it's been a hell of a climb. I just thought, you know, I was getting a little chirped earlier at the beginning of the season, a little relegation talk. You know, we have to create their own league for me. We didn't think I was progressing, you know, and here we go. So it's good, you know, you love to see that, but you know, I just can't sit here and not thank the Utah Warriors. Thank you for the schedule makers for putting us against Anthem in the finals. I just, you know, it's been a hell of a year. It's exactly what you wanted. You know, like you said, I've been just hunting playoffs, but I don't know, man. It just like I said, you gotta be humble with victory. I'd love to rub it in. I'd love to just grease you with it, right? But you know what? We're gonna be humble. We're
I
gonna just say,
appreciate
you
it. I
know
feel
what?
like
I haven't done very well the last couple of years. It's been nice to see the forward progression. I'm starting to understand the game. You know, yeah, it's just nice to win it. It's nice to see that I do understand the game of rugby. I understand the players. I'm paying attention. I don't just come on here and blow smoke. We can win, baby. We can win.
There you go. And I guess that is a testament to what we are trying to do here. One of the core reasons what we're trying to do here when it comes to fantasy MLR is expand the game. Have people like you, Vandy, experience rugby for the first time, especially with it emerging here in North America, and also learn the game. Learn the game through fantasy because fantasy is such a fun thing to take part of, whatever sport that you do play it in. I think it just helps to be that avenue, that vehicle to be able to teach the game through something that is fun. And Vandy is our poster child when it comes to that. And I hope in the future there is a whole bunch more people that are able to kind of make that progress, just like you, Vandy. I
You
will
know what
say
it is,
though,
honestly.
yeah,
You gotta download the sport and everything, but truly, fantasy when you win, it's very rarely does anybody win off luck.
mm,
It comes to, understanding the game, looking at teams, using analytics that have been, lucky enough to be given by Nick and this awesome website by Alistair, and it's using those tools, getting the sport, but putting the time in, watch the
yeah.
games, see who's important, make, waiver moves, be bold, bench guys with names and it just makes it fun, it makes it awesome.
Yeah.
I think fantasy sports or fantasy and sports go hand in hand, and you know what? It was a great time, and I'm gonna kick your guys' ass next year too.
There you go. The confidence builds. Again, the fantasy monster that John Fitzpatrick Rugby Morning says that we have created. That's a good point, though, Vandy. It is, for me, with fantasy, it's like 95% or even 99% of the legwork you do, right? That's what's
Yep,
going to get you a ticket into the playoffs or a
yep.
ticket into where you need to be. Obviously, in any fantasy sport or in any even in sports in general, luck is always going to play a part at some
Yeah.
point or form. But you got to put yourself in the position for that luck to play in your favor, and that's exactly what you do
For
by
me,
digesting all that stuff and learning.
well, for me, the volatility of rugby is crazy, but I thought that this year was a testament to pay attention and don't sweat the draft. I had a pretty bad draft. I drafted Tim Sweal, who never really played a good fly
Mm,
half. I drafted Semi Kunatani, who didn't really put up anything, with my first overall pick. And you just hunt the waiver, be smart, like I said, put in the work, man. And I guess the MLR is awesome for that because the volatility in the lineups, it gives everyone a chance. The draft, if you play football, you understand that the draft is big, but it's not everything.
mm,
And
mm.
that's why I've really enjoyed, fantasy rugby more so than even I love hockey, but hockey fantasy doesn't work. The draft is everything. This
Yeah.
goes to show, pay attention, watch the games, pay attention to waivers, and man, it doesn't matter how bad you draft. I had a terrible draft.
That just makes me feel worse that I lost to a guy that drafted Semi Kunatani first overall and I couldn't get the job done. As humble as you're trying to be, Vandy, that's just making me feel worse that I
Yeah, well,
couldn't
I
get the
got pretty
job
lucky
done.
that somebody dropped Joel Hodge and Mao. Boing!
There you go. I will say that we're probably going to get lit up in the comments or in our response in the Discord
Light
community
me
just
up.
about you not grilling me enough about beating me. I think a
No,
lot of people want to see the downfall of the
nope,
Supreme Commissioner.
I won't do it.
Um,
I won't do
and
it.
you have the opportunity here. You beat me fair and square at my own game, and I appreciate that, Vandy. We'll see
Humble
whether
in
or not
victory.
we'll see whether or not our followers, our supporters, our listeners are just as humble and as supportive and nice as you are in
I tell you,
victory.
last
But
night when I got the results, you wouldn't have wanted to be in the room.
oh,
That's
I
where I
could
got it
imagine.
out. But you know
I
what?
could
On
imagine.
here, in front of the world,
Um,
humble in victory, baby.
I will say, it does give us the time, though, to give a shout out to the other champions in our fantasy circles. We had this year one, two, three, four, five leagues on
Yep.
top of a listener league, on top of our OG league
Love it.
that participated this year, ranging from 6 to 8 teams. Just really, really cool to see all these people and more people enjoying fantasy MLR. So in the Scrum and Coke League, congratulations to Hawks 58 on his second year in a row winning the same league. So he has bought his
Wow.
ticket again to the Listener League. Again, he was in the lead of the Listener League. He was the favorite going into it. Yours truly was with the fourth seed upset victory. Couldn't get it done, but either way, Hawks 58 continues to be a force in fantasy MLR. Congratulations to John Payne in the Ruck This League, who, with his son, decided to hop into the fantasy MLR game for the first time this year, and in his first season, made playoffs and won his league with his son. So Vandy, not the same grueling journey that you had, but either way, John Payne, a longtime follower, big time New England Free Jacks fan. Wins it. And I thought that was a really cool thing. The fact that he used fantasy MLR for him and his son to kind of enjoy the Major League Rugby this season. It was something for them to do together.
Oh yeah.
And it sounded like they had a fun time this year. In the Tryhards League, congratulations to Stevesy, who won it in the again in the Tryhards League. Awesome to see him do that. He was nervous going into this final week, especially when he saw the Jed Melvin sub out at 20 minutes. But either
Yeah.
way, able to come in there and take the crown for the Tryhards League. In the Lul Malnati's Deep Dish League, Brad Bruins AC takes home the championship there. Really, really cool to see him dominate that league. And then finally, the Rucket Bucket League, one of our commissioners, P. Reggie, being that on the Discord at P. Reggie, taking home Pierce, the championship there in the Rucket Bucket League. So, with that being said, Maddie did say that he had a special message for all of our league champion winners and a little bit more on us, the Fantasy Ruckers champions in the OG League. So, we'll toss it back to Cancun amid Maddie's partying to give you guys that message. Take a listen.
This is Matt E checking in from Cancun, celebrating the championship that the Fantasy Ruckers just went through. Enjoying the pool, enjoying the beers, because just a message to the rest of you peasants that lost in the league is that we're still the champs. We're still the experts. And that's why you got to listen to us, the Fantasy Ruckers. And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out my boy Vandy, who's joined the championship club, the championship circle, the Ring of Honor. And unfortunately, there is still one Fantasy Rucker that has yet to do that because he just ain't that supreme. Congrats, Vandy. Congrats to the boys. Congrats to everybody on a great season. Happy MLR, happy Fantasy Ruckers, happy Fantasy Rugby. Cheers.
So the wise words of Maddie out in Cancun.
Oh.
I don't even know how to react to that because not only is he taking shots at me while celebrating our biggest fantasy MLR victory, Vandy, he makes you feel pretty good. And the thing that I got, he's calling the other league members, in at least the OG league, if I'm understanding correctly, peasants. I think he's feeling a little bit confident, a little bit cocky after the big win here by the boys. But hey, we each provide and bring our own.
Not so humble in victory, eh?
Exactly. Talk about the juxtaposition between your gracious acceptance of your listener league victory versus Maddie's acceptance of the Fantasy Ruckers win. But hey, Vandy, what do you have to say to that, man?
You know what? I got to be honest. That is on par for Maddie. But you know what? When you dominate the weekly challenge, when technically back the, I guess
what?
it counts.
Yeah.
It was a 3-piece win, but I'm just jealous I didn't get the invite. I'm jealous it got lost in the mail, and I don't think he's right. And I love to be a man of the people, and I don't agree with that he's peasants. So I'll just shout out a little thing from one the greatest wrestlers of all time. So Maddie, can you smell what the Rock is cooking?
There you go. Feels good. I know Maddie has been enjoying this victory and he'll continue to do so in Cancun. But appreciate him taking the time to hop on the beginning here and also send us a kind message on our victory, on your victory, Vandy, and on the victories of other league members across. Again, shout out to Hawks58. Shout out to Stevesy. Shout out to John Payne. Shout out to Brad Bruins AC. And shout out to Pierce, all of whom have bought their ticket
shout out to the
into
peasants, too.
league.
I don't think you're peasants, but you know what? Thanks for coming in droves this year. Thanks for playing. it's only so enjoyable. It's only so much fun because of you guys.
Well, all kidding aside, that's what I want to mention too. Is I just want to also take the time to give a huge, huge shout out to everyone, regardless of whether you were playing for a championship, you lost in your championship, you were playing for a toilet bowl title, you lost in your
Been
toilet
there,
bowl title.
been there.
It really wouldn't be possible without everyone who participated this season. It has grown each and every year. This year was our biggest season yet.
Yep.
It had some of our biggest additions and improvements to the website when it comes to the starts and the locks and projections and all this good stuff. And this is all things that we can continue to improve, continue to get better, and all begins because we know there's people out there that want to play fantasy MLR, and it's because of you guys we continue to work so hard at this. So from the Fantasy Ruckers team, from myself, from Vandy, from Maddie, and of course all the behind the scenes guys, Alistair Kirschpool on the website, Nick Johnson of all the analytics he does, Stephen Lowen for the community moderation he does on all of our platforms. It's just a big, big, big shout out to all of you out there who take the time to play fantasy MLR with all the positives and all the hardships that it comes as well. You guys are the best, and we couldn't have asked for a better supporting group and supporting cast of everyone who participated in fantasy MLR this season. And spread the word, right? We're going to have the weekly challenge continuing. Hopefully, we're going to have a playoff challenge that's coming up here when the playoffs begin, which is a lot of fun. More news to come out that in the near future with playoffs just around the corner. And then let's keep on spreading the word and get more and more leagues going. Again, we had the most leagues yet, the most participants yet. Let's grow that, and let's get even more people, whether they're rugby experts, rugby novices, get them into playing fantasy MLR with us here on the Fantasy Ruckers. I guess we have, though, to wrap it up, some housekeeping notes. I will say, obviously, some people are in it to win some cash, and we did have some paid leagues for the first time this year. Vandy, you took home the pot of our listener league, and we had a couple other paid leagues going out. Again, we use Team Stake as our distributor for that. We're going through all those numbers. We're finalizing the details there. Commissioners will be given the details on how those funds will be distributed in terms of how that operates on the website, and we'll notify all the leagues who were paid leagues this season. Finally, speaking of the weekly challenge, let's just quickly shout it out. We did have a winner this week, the Rugby Rick, 55.5 fantasy points for him to take home week 16's weekly challenge. Maddie finished third with 48.6. I finished fifth with 41.9. Vandy, at least I can take solace in that because you sucked this week at 12th, 23 fantasy points for you. You tried to go with the three-man lineup. Didn't quite work for you.
Hey, I was on to bigger, better fish. I don't know. What can I say?
There you go. Again, there are so many avenues here, and we're going to get into it right now in terms of the players that led us to this point. But man, for you, I'm sure you would trade in a weekly challenge victory for the.
I didn't get any of those.
That you had. To be on, no, what I'm saying is like you would trade in finishing 12th every week in the weekly challenge. That meant you were going to win the listener league. You were spending more time. You're doing more research on the
last ever. Yeah, of
and
course.
For me, to continue the humble pie, I would lose to you every day of the week if that meant us taking home a title of this jersey. There's something special about winning the OG league. I cannot maybe say that for other people if I was facing others in the listener league, but if that's the trade-off, hey, love to see that the Fantasy Ruckers name is going to be on the Fantasy Ruckers Championship jersey for the first time, which is really, really cool. All right, well, let's talk about how we got here. Week 16, full of exciting matchups, and let's talk about some of those performances that happened in this past weeks of games.
Quick Tap Recap.
All right, time for our Quick Tap Recap. Week 16 on by the Houston SaberCats. Lots of performances here. What's that feeling like, Vandy? I can't explain it. It's hard to put into words. That level of angst that you have in a championship week, to go in and that pressure of you have no control. You've set your lineup, and now you just got to sit and wait and stew and wait for these players to come through here with some numbers. I mean, let me tell you, I was a nervous wreck Friday afternoon before the first matchup between Miami and San Diego on that Friday. I was just like double checking the lineup, refreshing, making sure I had the right guys in, double checking the lineups.
Oh yeah, I did
And
the
then you
same.
finally at 7:29 before the 7:30 kickoff, you're like, okay, I guess this is it. It is literally, as Matt would say, Jesus take the wheel, and you just wait until Sunday for when those numbers come through. What was Friday afternoon like for you?
Friday afternoon, not so bad. I was pretty excited for the 9 o'clock, the Utah anthem. But I will say after watching that game, and you know what, I knew the boys did well. See, the thing is, you got to wait on meter numbers, tackles, yada 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 yada. But playing the anthem and seeing none of my five Utah boys come out with a try was pretty wild. That actually had me pretty scared. I was sitting there, and then you update the scores, and you're like, "Well, Vandy, you're actually kind of kicking my ass." And I look at
Yeah,
him like, "Okay,"
there you
it
go.
didn't make me feel much better. But you know what? Uh, you never feel great. You
Yeah, and it really is. You never feel great until the numbers are final.
no,
That
you
that
don't.
that's how it goes. So let's start off though with Friday at 7:30, the first match, San Diego, Miami. From a league context, this one was actually pretty important because San Diego's on the cusp right now in terms of that Western Conference race. They have not looked great here towards the tail end of the season, and that really continued in this match here. Just again at the beginning. Miami gets on the board very, very early, just 1 minute in. Mistimed and missed opportune turnovers for San Diego. One that stood out to me at the 10-minute mark. They could cash in and kind of get the score tighter within one score. They get a turnover within that five off of the maul, and then Miami goes all the way the other way to score a try not too long after, and that's a 17-point swing. You go from a one possession game to 17 points, and it's just like what are you doing? And again, they finally got it going at the end of the first half, two set piece tries. Shout out to my man Hugh Roach, where we talk about fantasy sweethearts. It was in our post in terms of guys that are going to really stick with you in terms of when a guy, right, in football, Vandy, you got Travis Kelce, right? And it's like that guy stuck with you because he bought in your first year, or it was like your second, or was it your first year fantasy football? Something like that, where you drafted Kelsey, not really knowing him going into the season.
That was like 10
And then
years ago, bud.
by the end of the year, you have a jersey, you're a full-on KC fan, because of that moment where he was your fantasy sweetheart. And this week for the
Even better,
fantasy
bud.
rock,
Sorry to cut you. I got it. Now that you brought it up, I got to say the story. Christmas Day, bud.
yeah, there you go. There you
Christmas
go.
Day. A tight end
Best,
takes a 75-yard touchdown to the house
there you go.
to win me
There
the
you go.
playoffs. And then that was, I
So
literally said, I messaged the group before. I said, if this guy wins me, I had no favorite team, I had no nothing. And I said, if this guy wins me a championship, I'm buying his jersey. I'm a Kansas City fan. And he did. And I lived
he
up to my
did.
word.
He did. The reason why I bring that up is
And here we
because,
are.
again, there you go. The reason why I bring that up is because fantasy creates these sweethearts for you. And if you don't
True.
have a team, if you don't have players, there are players that can do that. And there were two from this match, at least from the fantasy Ruckers side of things that I want to talk about when we get it as we get into fantasy playoff numbers. But Hugh Roach with two tries on the San Diego set piece when they wrapped up that first half. Maddie and I and you were stewing back and forth about who to start at that hooker position. Were we going to go Andrew Quattrin, who's been our front row guy all season long? Last minute change. Pick up Hugh Roach off the waivers, put him into our lineup, and he rewards us with
Yes, sir.
a 14-point performance there by Hugh Roach. And again, that's the great way to buy yourself into the hearts of us here at the Fantasy Ruckers when you show up when it matters most. And 14.4 there for the Fantasy Ruckers to basically be a big piece on why we won our championship. Huge. But again, that wrapped up the first half. Back and forth in the second half in this matchup. And then ultimately Miami hanging tight there. Shane O'Leary electric from the boot. The other sweetheart I want to talk about, we're in a fly half abyss on the Fantasy Ruckers. We're starting Cameron Gerlach at our fly half position. Hesitantly, we just needed a kicker. So Shane O'Leary's been that guy for us for the past couple of weeks with Lincoln McClutchy being in and out of the lineup. And I got to tell you, that 40-meter plus kick in the second half was nasty when he slotted that in. The dagger, Josiah Mora knocking that grubber down when Inciarte put it through. Again, Miami coming through, clinching their playoffs. San Diego falling short, are now in essentially a do or die situation here coming in this week where it could be out of their hands in terms of if they are able to make playoffs. To think that San Diego would be last in the Western Conference, I'd be blown. I'd be mind blown if you told me that at the start of the year. I knew people that had them at the top, and
Hey,
they could be missing out on
you
elimination.
know how we had those predictions for Nick? I put that San Diego was going to come last
Did you
in the
really?
West. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to look back on that because that's looking obviously pretty sweet this one. But hey, Danny, let's talk about fantasy point performances. We started off with Hugh Roach in this one. He was the best San Diego performer. Next one was Ethan Grayson, who obviously from a meters gain perspective was solid, 112 meters gained for him for 12.2. And then Connor Tupai, Jed Holloway, both getting double-digit fantasy point performances there. Let's talk about the Miami side of things, though, because Miami cooking up some points. We start off with the highest point score of the game. Manuel Ardeo comes through when it matters most. Talking about a guy that's been really consistent all season long. Double-digit fantasy point performances,
Yep.
except for 3 times. I will say he dropped down the cards this year, which was good to see, and he racks up his highest point total, second highest point total of the year, just point 0.2 shy of his highest in the week that matters most, with a try, 45 meters gained, 23 tackles to rack up the 2020 here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show that we have now coined. 19.4 for Manuel Ardeo is good enough to put him on our team of the week at the back row position. Ardeo is a monster.
Dude, absolute And to get 20 points in your finals if you were in it.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, it
God.
feels so good. Shane O'Leary, again, like we mentioned, from the boot, clutch, 3 conversions, 5 penalty kicks. He gets the highest point total of the year for MLR 2025 out of all players in this match here. Again, for us, comes through, enters the Fantasy Ruckers sweethearts when it comes to fantasy point performances. I will say what scared me the most, because John Fitzpatrick Rugby Morning had this guy,
Oh,
Thomas Inciarte, at the scrum half position,
monster game.
16.3 fantasy points with 3 try assists, 9 tackles, 26 meters gained at the scrum half position. Like, you couldn't ask for a better performance from a scrum half on the most important week, and Inciarte came through. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, Fitzy's in it. Fitzy's
Yep.
in it, especially when we had Jason Higgins on the other end who put
Oh,
up like 2 fantasy points. We're like,
yeah, it was
damn,
tough.
this is going to be close. So Inciarte comes through. Other guys, Benjamin Bonasso, 15 fantasy points for him. Matthias Orlando, 13.7. And then rounding it out at just shy of double digits, Josiah Mora with that try there from Inciarte to put him up there. And Miami gets the win, 36-32.
Yeah, baby.
Perfect. All right, let's get nothing less said. I know where you want to go with this conversation, Vandy. You want to go to this next matchup at 9 p.m. Between Utah and Anthem. I mean, what a match to have in your finals week. You know what I mean? To have a matchup that you're just cooking and you're like, this is the matchup I've been searching for. You didn't really necessarily know going into the year that would be what you'd be banking on because you got to make it there first. But once you get to the final, you know that your Utah boys are facing Anthem Rugby Carolina. Feels pretty good. From a game perspective, not much to talk about because it really was Utah dominance from start to finish. Like
Yeah.
there was kind of back and forth for the first maybe 10 minutes, but then once the first try went on the board for Utah, it really was them all the way. You did, and we'll talk a little bit more about the betting side of things later on, but you did cash in just shy with that 22 and a half point spread for Anthem Rugby Carolina. I guess Utah doing you a favor, not only getting you the win, but getting you the win by just enough, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
And that's got to feel pretty good. But from a fantasy perspective, let's chat about it. Pretty solid performance. Again, maybe not as high as you would like to have seen from Utah guys going into this one, or at least coming out of this one. But solid performances all around. Joe Mano, 16.3 fantasy points. He's been having kind of a lackluster past couple of weeks, kind of disappointing fantasy managers, but scores his first try since round 13 after he went on a string where he scored 7 in the span of 4 weeks. He now has 13 on the
Yeah.
season, I believe, which I think is among the league leaders, if not Balikana
I
having
think
just as
Ballyconnor
many.
might be tied. No, Ballyconnor's got 12, I think.
Okay. Let's see here. Tries. Quick pull up here. Uh, 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 uh. Tries. Uh, yeah, Mono 13. So he is the league leader, retains that here this week, with that try scored in this match. And again, if you had him in your lineup, you're happy. 16 fantasy points by a guy that you drafted pretty decently high. Obviously, his value fell off a little bit from being the number one pick last year, but still bringing back that value there. Jordan Trainer, good to see him back in the
Oh,
lineup. 11.8 fantasy points for him. Pretty solid. Cole Simu, who's been a staple of the center line, has his
hey,
best performance of the year,
first try
11.3.
of his career, bud.
First try of the career. Gotta love to see that. And then Dylan Nell, 10.7. Frank Lahore, second row team of the week player, scoring 10.6, three straight double-digit weeks. He scored 2 tries heading into this matchup, doesn't score one in this one, but has 25 meters gained, 17 tackles, and a breakdown steal. Frank Lahore, maybe not the explosive second row player that we've seen in the past years when it comes to the
Solid.
value that it provided, but still solid. And he showed up when it mattered most in the fantasy stretch, double-digit fantasy point performances for him. And Bandy, I know you were happy with that. He was a guy that largely provided for you, especially in a second row year where really no, you were maybe finding cheat codes of like guys who were playing back row position, like OJ Noah a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
Even like Mason Flesh earlier on. But Frank Lahore, as a pure second row player, came through for you when you needed it.
sure did.
Lance Williams, finally 10.5 fantasy points for him. His second highest of the season, back in the starting lineup.
Yes, sir. Good to see him
Obviously a
back.
mainstay of MLR. Good to see him with 16 meters gained, 13 tackles. Anthem side of things, you weren't really starting anyone if you had to. Again, we had to start Cameron Gerlach just because we needed someone to slot at the starting flyout position. Didn't do fantasy relevant there, but Mitch Wilson with 84 meters gained and the conversion and penalty kick was really the only guy that was fantasy relevant. Maybe you threw a dart on Toby Fricker, who had 58 meters gained, 7 tackles for 9.9 for him. But again, you were staying away from Anthem as much as you could here this week, and rightfully so, because
Hey,
Utah comes away
did you know
with the dominant
Bailey
win 31-10.
Wilson and Mitch Wilson are brothers?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I found that out during the game.
There you go.
And
There you
one
go.
last thing, I'll still be watching Utah, obviously, but I just want to shout out to Greg Cooper, the coach of Utah.
Hmm?
Thank you for the job you've done this year. Stacking your Utah Warriors, our Utah Warriors, was the greatest thing I've ever done in fantasy. So I just want to say thank you for setting that lineup. Thank you for staying faithful to that lineup. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're gonna have to send that guy a piece of your fantasy winnings there, Vandy. I
I
think
will not,
in
but
this
I
league.
will seek him hopefully at some point in my life, and I will buy him a beer.
All right, let's move on to the first matchup on Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. RFCLA, Old Glory DC. RFCLA with the 43-32 victory in what was a pretty back and forth affair. I would love to be able to explain how this match went, but we lost connection about 20 minutes into the match, 30 minutes in the match, because according to reports and according to boots on the ground, Alistair Kirschpool, who's at the game, a tree took down a power line that basically wiped out power at the stadium, which includes the TV connection. So outside of the first little bit of the match that we were able to watch, could not watch the rest of it. And that was also made apparent by them obviously not having highlights to post of this match on the official Major League Rugby page. So either way, all we have to go off of are the fantasy stats in this one, and we did have some big time fantasy point performers. Two team of the week honorees. The front rower Ben Strang, coming off the bench, puts up 16.4 fantasy points for our front row team of the week player. I can't imagine we had too many people, if any at all, starting Ben Strang, but he would have been a cheat code this week because he subbed into the back row position, and when you have a front rower that is doing that, gonna see a lot of more fantasy points from that perspective. The other one being Christian Leo Lifano, Down week for fly halves, but 8.2 was the high this week for the fly half position. So Christian Leolofano being the guy that is able to rack in the highest fly half point total of this week. But other guys that we got to give a shout out. Let's start on the DC side of things. Three guys I want to mention. Axel Muller. Two tries in this one, 21 fantasy points, almost the highest fantasy point score in this week if it wasn't for a awesome performance by Balikana, which we'll get into. But ever since he came back into the starting lineup after facing injury, had that break between in rounds 11 through 13, he scores a try every single match. 14, 15, 16, scores two tries in this one. Second highest meters gained total at 106. When you add that together to get 21 points, it's pretty solid. And again, Axel Muller has been so key. And I was kicking myself if we hadn't won. This would have been a move that I would have been kicking myself at because Axel Muller was on our team. We dropped him since he had that injury, and to not have him was definitely a point deficit. But either way, for those of you who did keep him, he showed up, and he showed up in a big way in the championship final. John Rizzo, 15.9 fantasy points for him with the try that he scored, his fourth of the season. And then Nick Rigg, 13 fantasy points in the 70 minutes he played. He also scored a try with 53 meters gained. From the LA side of things, Christian Dyer with the spot start. Because Rory Van Voot was actually was not in the game, even though he was on the expected starting lineup. He scores his first try in his first appearance since round 7, 59 meters gained in a try. And this one, can't imagine too many people with Christian Dyer in their lineup. Ben Strain, we talked about, was 16.4. Down the list, Ben Houston, 15.3. Tim Anstey, 15. Reese McDonald, 14.
Hey, man.
Just a whole bunch of fantasy points. When you have a total of 75 points scored, these are the types of matches you want every single piece you can get. You would have thought maybe Utah pieces, but I would have wanted any piece of RFCLA or Old Glory DC over Utah this past week, just with how many points were scored in this one. Seems like a back and forth affair that was just too many points to handle when it comes to fantasy sense. Too many points for the power to handle for them to keep the TV going there on that one. All right, let's move on to the second matchup on Saturday between Chicago and NOLA. NOLA got on the board first. My takeaway from this one, the way that Chicago plays, they are just so persistent. And if you don't capitalize on the times that they are not scoring, you will only stick with them for so long because they are going to bash you in the mouth until they score. Mm-hmm. And it was 14-7 at the end of the first half. You needed to capitalize when you had that 7-0 lead. The tries held up. Chicago holds it up. They keep it 21-7, and then it's just they run away with it, right? So you don't take advantage of being there. One thing I do gotta say is that Peyton Wall is sick. We talk about sweethearts. Vandy, he might be one of your fantasy sweethearts now. Swap out Nate Oxberger, put in Peyton Wall.
If I didn't have a team, Chicago would be looking pretty sweet right now.
Yeah, I mean that was just that try that he scored was just so electric.
He brought me through the playoffs, man. That guy was just electric.
You could argue, even though he only had a tenor of 5 weeks that he played for that he started in, like
the most important weeks, bud.
Fantasy pickup of the year.
Yep.
Right? Yep. Like if you were riding into fantasy playoffs and you were able to snag Peyton Wall, he was an auto start all the way through. And let's get into fantasy point performances. From Chicago, 14.9 fantasy points from Peyton Wall, double digits every single start he's had, round 13 onwards. Has his second highest point total of the year, second try of the year, a beautiful one at that. Add that to 67 meters gained, 4 tackles, and a forced turnover. Peyton Wall, man. It's going to be interesting to see if and where he goes in drafts next year.
Yeah, he was kind of a cheat code because I got him at center when I needed some help. I think it was like week 11 he started playing or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Something like that. I just needed a guy, and got super lucky there. I was able to slot him in at center. He was a back row guy, lost his eligibility, but you still had to find the spot for him. He was just that good. Yeah.
Ended up having back 3 eligibility in that final match, but nonetheless, you were finding a way to put Peyton Wall in your lineup. Lucas Rumble, 13.1 fantasy points for him with 27 meters gained, 8 tackles, and 4 breakdown steals. Lucas Rumble doing Lucas Rumble things. And then two other Chicago guys to note. Bryce Campbell, 12.6. Ollie Devoto with the try, 12.1 fantasy
Yes,
points, his third
sir.
try of the year. And then Dylan Fawcett, the butcher,
The butcher.
scores double-digit fantasy points, 2 tries in the past 2 matches, 4 tries in the past 5, 6 tries in the past 7. The butcher ended up being the marquee front rower that we know him as in terms of point production in fantasy MLR circles. Nola's side of things, we got to dish out our center team of the week player, JP Duplessis. And what a way to end his fantasy MLR season, because JP Duplessis used to be a mainstay. And Maddie could tell you
Oh, yeah.
he was a big portion of how he won his championship. Let me check my shirt.
Him
In
and Oxburger, baby. I
2023.
remember.
Exactly. Kind of has fallen off from that point. But hey, if you had him in your lineup, only 29% of teams had him rostered, but 17 and a half fantasy points for his second best of the year, third try of the season, 10 tackles, a try assist, and 50 meters gain. JP WBC again showing up when people needed him most. Jonah Moe, oh, like he's gonna be like, it's funny, right? Like you would have said at the start of the season, right? Like if I threw you Jonah Moe or Semi Kunatani, right?
Same.
Like Semi all the way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's not even a knock on Jonah, because
Oh.
Jonah has always been good from fantasy perspective. It just showed you how good Semi was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Jonah Moe was essentially this year's Semi. Like literally scored double-digit fantasy point performances in every single match except 3.
Do we do it to
One
him?
of those, one of those was coming off the bench,
Eddie?
right? What?
Do we do it to him next year?
See, and this is
We literally curse players.
yes. The
Since we
Fantasy
started
Ruckers,
this, we have ruined the livelihood of players just because we take you first overall. That's
the
it. That's
Fantasy
all it
Ruckers
takes.
curse is a real thing. Like you have the Madden curse, you have the Fantasy Ruckers curse. People have talked about it, and it's true. And
It's
we'll
true.
start talking about it in the off
We're
season
ruining
on
livelihoods out here.
who we would choose first overall, because there are a handful of players that I think have the no one ran away with it. Like last year we had Michael Manson, right? Like if Michael Manson returned this year, like he would have been hands down the number one pick,
Yep.
right? The
No
year
doubt about it.
before that, Joe Mono, hands down number one pick. Year
Yep.
before that, Ed Fido,
Yep.
hands down number one pick. Year before that, what's his name?
Uh,
New England Free Jacks.
um,
Oh, come
Dude,
on.
no way. He didn't return.
Oh,
What was his name? Bodie
Bodine
Walker.
Waka, Bodine
Yeah.
Waka, the year before that. None of them have came back and produced the following season. So we'll see what happens this year. Jonah Moe, I believe, at least at this point, with Fantasy MLR done, finishes off as the highest back row player. Or highest forward overall,
Oh, yeah.
second highest fantasy player, just behind Devon Rousseau, who we'll get into just a little bit here. And finishes point 0.1 ahead of Joe Mono. So we say Joe Mono a down year from years before, and he still finishes off as the third best fantasy player. Just to see that. But talking about other than to round out the NOLA side of things here, Julian Roberts, 13.1 for him. Like I mentioned, Jonah Moe with 13.2, Ed Fido, 11.8, Cooper Coates, 10.6 fantasy points in that one. Sweet. All right, let's head on now over to the last matchup, Sunday's sole matchup. The New England Free Jacks taking on the Seattle Seawolves. A little bit of an overview of this one. Seattle. I honestly think this was Seattle losing this one more so than New England winning it. And the only reason why I say that, I get that New England's a great team and they are rolling right now. They are top of the Eastern Conference, but it is something to be said when 3 of your 5 tries that you scored in this matchup came during the red card, right? Rhino Herbst goes off in the red card.
What'd you think of that red card? Guy gets the ball, spins around, and he ends up taking a shoulder to the head. I thought
Head,
a yellow. When he pulled the red, I was like, really?
yeah. I mean, we
Because it
knew
was 14-0 at that time. That
yes,
changed the game.
it did. It did. And that's what I'm saying. Like that put New England 3 tries during that red
Yeah.
card. 45th minute, Lesage comes in to take the lead. And Then you cap that off by a tough handling error by Devon Rousseau, where Cam
Yeah.
Norby-Calameti scores it in there. And there you have it. You have a win for the New England Free Jacks. So red card or not, the call was made,
Yep.
right? And you don't want to
True.
put yourself in that situation, period, right? Because then you're leaving it in the discretion of the ref's hands. And we can argue semantics on whether or not it should have been a yellow, should have been a
Yep.
red. Either way, miss opportune time to get that with you having the lead when you need the win the most against a team that you know will take advantage with the man up. New England took advantage and they did so. A guy that did a lot during that red card span and the rest of the match was Paulo Bellicana, who, man, talk about a tail end of a season for this guy. Because, I mean, highest point scorer in this match is our back three team of the week player. He finishes off his last 6 matches 28.9. 12.9, 17.3, 17.4, 18.6, 23.5 fantasy points in a row. The past 5 matches, he has scored 6 tries. You extend that to include the past 8 matches where he really had this string of starts for him. He was kind of in and out of the lineup between rounds 1 and 7. 11 tries on the year during that time, 12 in total, 27.5 in round 8, bookends that with 23.5 here in round 16. I mean, Paulo Bellicana, just you extrapolate that out for a whole season. If he didn't miss that time, who knows? But I mean,
he's the number one back row was Joe Mono, and he got, what is it, 9 less fantasy points. 9.
Yeah.
And he played 3 less games. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. So Balikana, a huge star in this one, goes right up there with the Peyton Walls in terms of fantasy impact to win people championships. Does that this week as well. Other New England Free Jack. He was also the highest point scorer in round 16 too. So MVP of the finals. Ben Lesage, 15.1 for him with the try that he scored in the 44 minutes that 44 meters he gained in the 80 minutes he played. Brock Webster, solid match, 12.2 fantasy points with 47 meters gained there. And then rounded out Simon Peter Toliafoa, Cam Norby-Calameti, both solid performances, 9.9, 8.8 for them respectively. Onto the Seattle side of things, obviously, couple portions of those tries going through the Seattle set piece. Devault Kotza was the guy that took advantage of that. He had 13.2 fantasy points on this one. And then Tony Pulu, with the try he scored, was able to sneak in double digits and get 10.8 this week. So, interesting games. And I think it has lent itself and set itself up for a very exciting final week of the regular season. A lot at stake. No one has run away with it. No one is like a Houston SaberCats of last year, where they are hands down the best team. Honestly, going into this final week and going into the playoffs, I can see any given team winning on any week here to possibly make a run at the Shield. And it really is who's in the best form at this time.
Playoffs don't care about your regular season win-loss record.
True.
You just got to make it there. Look what happened to Houston last year.
Right. With Dallas. Yeah, absolutely. Well, but that being said, I mean, let's talk about it. No waiver wire this week. Nothing that we need to talk about. A little bit of research of our chest because we can think of that with clear heads without fantasy. It is sad. Some of the gifts that were posted on our Discord community. You know, the Pablo Escobar one where he's sitting,
where he's waiting around.
Yeah, waiting around. There was that one. A good one that would fit would be the Michael Jordan tears in that one as well. There's also, I guess, in the tune of Lilo and Stitch being out in theaters. One Lilo Stitch sitting in the rain, waiting for fantasy to return. It is kind of sad, right, Vanny? Fantasy is sad. Fantasy.
Even as a winner, you still want more. Like you still don't want it to be over.
Well, hey, weekly challenge and TFR playoff challenge.
It's not the same.
Yeah, I know.
It's good. It tickles the edge, but it's just not fantasy.
I know. Well, with that being said, hey, let's get into it and let's talk about this round 17 final week of the regular season, one without fantasy MLR and one that's probably going to dictate a whole lot of how this playoff picture is going to look.
Rocking Rundown.
All right, time for the Week 17 rucking rundown. Vandy, if I have to do the math correctly, I would have to get every single match right, and you would have to get every single match wrong for me to just tie you for our season-long competition of predictions. You were sitting at 48, 33 and 1. You went 2 and 3 last week. I went 3 and 2, and now sit 42, 39 and 1. Maddie's out of the picture, 39, 42 and 1. He can pass me at least, but we'll try not to let that happen as he is in Cancun. Again, last regular season week, one that does not include fantasy MLR, but one we're going to take just as seriously when it comes to these predictions to talk about. When we talk about playoff picture, no team has solidified any spot. There's no Eastern Conference champions yet, no Western Conference champions yet. I believe New England has guaranteed a home game, either finishing first or second. Utah has guaranteed a home game, I believe, finishing either first and second, if I understand correctly there. But outside of that, everything is up in the air. We do know that it is New England, Chicago, Old Glory, DC, and Miami in the Eastern Conference part of things that are making playoffs. On the Western Conference side of things, San Diego, Seattle, duking it out basically for that last spot in that, with Houston having a game in hand playing tonight, the Wednesday matchup against the Chicago Hounds. They could very well lose both matches. It would have to take a miracle for imagine if Houston gets knocked out. That would be
Oh,
crazy,
I
crazy,
can't see
crazy,
it
crazy.
happening, but
Possible, not happening, but I do think it's a race that comes down to Seattle and San Diego for that last Western Conference spot. All right, let's get into it. We start off with that Wednesday matchup we talked about. Chicago, Houston. Chicago's at home. Again, they have since released their lineup, and it looks pretty solid. But there are notable lineup changes, right? We got Carl starting. Carl says starting at 10. So we don't have a Hilson back in there.
Mhm.
Sweal has been starting at the 15 position. Pollock is in. We don't have a Peyton Wall. Dominguez and O'Keefe are in. No Rumble, and Fawcett is out. So obviously maybe not a full second tier team, but a team that's definitely not its strongest with the tight turnaround for Chicago. And they are taking on a Houston side that is fully rested, coming off of a bye. I know that they do take on Anthem Rugby Carolina this week later on, but I would expect that they're going to put all their eggs in the basket against Chicago, make
Yeah.
sure that they come out with the victory there, basically solidifying their playoff spot here, and then take care of business and be able to put down and still possibly more likely than not come away with a win against Anthem Rugby Carolina. For that reason, I mean, easier said than done, but I'm going with Houston in this one. Extra time off, facing a weakened Chicago lineup. I feel like the writing is in the wall right now.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Any word on Davy?
I don't know. I have not heard of anything with regards to that. So,
Sorry, Mr. Coates. I should have said.
Mr. Kotzer, exactly. He has had the extra time off. We have seen appearances from him. I would put my money on, again, I don't know the severity of his injury. I heard that it was
Probably
some sort
playing
of a jaw
Chicago.
thing. So we'll see. I would lean at like 51% that we see a Davy in this week. Of just to check. Let me check out the Twitter.
I think you're
Good
right
old
though. I think you nailed it. I think this is kind of a must, not a must win, but it kind of feels like it for Houston.
You want to go into this weekend not having the pressure. I get it, you're facing Anthem Rugby Carolina, but like let's get the job done, right?
Let's get the
Let's
job done.
let's solidify playoffs now, and then at least we can then treat this weekend, not have the pressure of needing to perform, and then going into the playoffs with a little bit of rest,
You don't
right?
want to
Like,
lose this game and then have to beat Anthem and have them have the Cinderella story of them getting their first win and knocking
yeah.
you out of playoffs.
If there is a
If
a
there's
a,
a
a
story,
puppeteer out there, oh man, that would be spicy. That'd be
tell the
spicy. But I think
script
we're
writers to give me a text, eh?
Yeah, we're on the same page though. Houston there, and then we fast track to Saturday's matchups. We got 3 Saturday matchups this week. We start off at 7 p.m. Eastern time. NOLA taking on the New England Free Jacks. I would imagine again. Let's check the standings again. I would imagine we see. I think it all depends on what happens this week, right? Like, what is it? Chicago plays this week and then they're done, right? That's their last match
Yeah.
of the season is tomorrow or is tonight on Wednesday. If Chicago loses tomorrow or tonight on Wednesday, I think that we are going to see a rested New England Free Jacks lineup because that match means nothing to both teams,
I
right? Like
see.
Nola is not making playoffs. New England is going to finish first place regardless because Chicago is one
Unless Chicago wins.
unless and that's what I'm saying unless Chicago wins
But
then
it sounds like Chicago's already sailed that ship in a way. With them starting the lineup they have, I think they've somewhat conceded this first overall.
so the only reason why I bring that up is there a chance for Nola to end the season on a high note after what has been a tough 2025 year and them coming away with the upset victory over New England?
I mean, they didn't have a very good game against Chicago, but they played when they played us. We only beat them by three. They played pretty good,
It's been classic Nola, right? Like every year it's the same thing,
but
right?
then
Like they
OG
show
smokes them the week
spurts.
before. So I mean,
Yeah.
what do you do with that? It's you.
I'm going with the battle tested team. I'm going with the team that I have confidence on. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Nola's
Yeah,
fooled me enough this season. I'm going with New England in this one.
yeah. I'm sick of gambling on Nola.
Yeah. I will say though, we'll talk about betting picks. If New England does come with a short lineup, I do like the line there if it's big enough for the Nola goal because you can tell, that they're going to be underdogs by a decent margin in that one.
Nola's the type of team to sit their starters too for no reason.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. All right. Third matchup of the week, second on Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern time, Utah
Big
at
one,
home against RFC LA.
big one.
Yeah, very big one because Utah 3 points ahead in the standings of RFC LA. Had you told me a month ago that RFC LA had a chance to take the top spot in the Western Conference with a win here, spicy. That's all I can say. This game, just with
I
what's on the
can't believe
line,
they're even close, honestly.
I mean, I think it's just shown you the parity of the league that every team has been beating up on each other, even the bad teams, right? Outside of Anthem, like Miami has surged late, like Seattle has been on a surge late, like just the conferences have just been there's been no clear-cut team that has just ran away with this.
Point differential should mean something. That should give you like if you have like a plus 50 point differential, you should be getting an extra bonus point or something.
Spoken like a
The
true
fact
Utah
that,
fan.
RFCLA's
Hey,
just over 500 and they're just over 500 point differential.
a win's a win.
And we're
A
10
win's a
and
win.
5
A
with a
win's a win.
71 point differential. And they can tie?
A wins. No, they can
They
no
can
because
win. I know.
wins are worth 4 points, Vandy, in
I know.
rugby.
I know.
So all RFCLA has to do is win this match, and they have first in
They
the
got two
West.
games left too.
Who? LA?
Yeah.
No, Houston does.
How the hell did LA only play 9 games?
What? What do you mean? Played 9 games?
They're eight. Oh, wait. God, never mind. Never mind. Never mind. My brain's not working. My brain's not working.
8-1-6, Vandy. You forgot about the loss
Listen,
column
I
there.
just won the championship, all right? I'm done with doing math
Either
and looking
way,
at stats and doing numbers
I get it. I get it. You need a little bit of an off season. I
because I'm
get
the
it. It's been a
champ,
long grueling
baby.
year for you.
I'm the
I know who
champ.
you're putting. I know who you're putting down, Vandy. You're putting down Utah, obviously, which means I have to
Utah.
put down LA, which is the team that I had predicted all season long. Um,
Utah.
this is my game of the week. I cannot wait for this one. Just so much on the line. Who would have thought it'd be Utah and LA battling out for the first in the West?
Well, I know
Um,
Utah would be there because I said it, but
There you go. All right. Next matchup, San Diego Legion, Old Glory DC. Talking about things that are on the line. This is a big one. Old Glory DC locking playoffs, but they have a chance here to get the home seed. And I think that's a big deal in playoffs to be the home team. So that's what's on the line for Old Glory DC. If Chicago loses this week against Houston tonight
Probably.
with the weekend lineup, if Old Glory DC is able to get a bonus point win against San Diego this week, they will take second place and have the first round home playoff matchup. On the San Diego side of things, they're playing for their lives. They need to have a win here to have a shot at making playoffs. They sit 1 point behind the Seattle Seawolves for the last place in the Western Conference. Seattle takes on Miami, so there's at home. I get it, but they do take on Miami, who has been on a surge lately. That's a losable game by Seattle, and that's all you need to happen for San Diego. But you have to start off with San Diego winning, and then the cards are out of your hand, and you're sitting on Sunday waiting to see that Miami Sharks Seattle Seawolves matchup. Either way, kind of the same notion about the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me.
I'm
I've
done
been
with the
buying
Legion.
onto the San
I'm
Diego
done.
Legion side. Yeah, I don't know what
I'm
it
not
is.
joking. I think the Legion have lost me $40 this year. They have been the worst team to gamble on. In the early beginnings, they made me some, and then I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean,
5 times. Okay, what does that make me?
yeah, I don't know what it is, to be honest. It's just something is not working for San Diego. They have the players, they have the talent. They are not a last place team, and yet here they are in last place.
I don't know if it's
And
coaching, but it's like they have a blow up moment every single
yeah,
game. Every
yeah.
single game.
Like you can pinpoint, like again, we mentioned it in the earlier match. Like you're sitting at 2 scores down. You have a line out on the 5 meter line, right? Your set piece has been on point these past handful of weeks. Hugh Roach in that game
In that
scored
game,
two
had 2
tries,
tries.
three set piece tries in that match. But
Yeah.
in the possession that mattered most, somehow you allow Miami to steal that ball. And what could have been a 10-5 or 10-7
Mhm.
score, or 12-5 or 12-7, I can't remember what it was. It ends up flipping around to 17-0 the other way. And that's just a hard mountain to climb when you're facing a
Yep.
Miami team that has been playing very well. So either way, I think you get the moral of the story here. I'm going DC in this one. I get it that they're away, but DC is on the up and up. San Diego has been on the down and down. Well, who knows? Again, it scares me every week because I don't want to be that guy that gets burned by the San Diego team that I expect them to be to come through. But I'm just tired that they just haven't done it, and I'm not waiting until the last regular season match to do that. And they'll probably burn me on this one because this is the week that I change. But either way,
You know what? Since we made that comment about Robertson going out and saying that OGDC is probably done, that was
yeah,
their bloodline, that was their life,
yeah,
they
no
have
kidding,
played unbelievably
yeah,
well on the pitch.
yeah,
Guys
yeah,
have stepped up, and you know what? How do you count them out right now? Yeah,
yeah.
DC, if you didn't get that.
Yeah. All right. Sunday now. Houston taking on Anthem Rugby Carolina. We're expecting
I'm
Houston
done.
to beat Chicago, even if they're going into this matchup where they lose against Chicago and they need a win against Anthem Rugby Carolina. I believe with even a second tier lineup, Houston is beating this Anthem Rugby Carolina team. Houston, I mean, that would mean Anthem officially goes 2 straight seasons without a win. They are still searching for their first franchise win. It's I feel at this point I just feel bad, right? Like that's why I gloss over these matches
Hey,
because like it's
Anthem.
like yeah,
Anthem fans, I take you guys to cover every single week. So you guys are really good at covering the spread. So you win something. You win that.
yeah.
You win
I
against the
don't know.
Bucks.
It's again, I think we have to go into the sports record books to see the worst start for a brand new franchise.
It's got to be this.
Um,
Did
right?
not win
I
a game.
first 2 seasons.
Oh, and what did they play? 16 games? 0 and 32? 0 and 32. That's insane, bro.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
mean,
for it.
I don't want to keep on beating a dead horse, but
We're,
at this point, it feels bad.
we're
It
not
feels
even
bad.
beating it. It's just not going away. We just keep walking by it. We're like, shit, it's still dead. Like, wow.
Yeah. All right. Last matchup there. Seattle, Miami at 9 p.m. Eastern time to wrap up the MLR 2025 regular season.
Sick
This
game.
one's enticing.
Sick game.
Mi- Miami, they have a shot at moving up into the third seed. With a Old Glory DC loss against San Diego, if they get a bonus point win and Old Glory DC does not get a bonus point, they can find themselves in third place, taking on Chicago or New England. Um,
So
from this standpoint, this game probably means a little bit like fourth or third. Like, you're going to be away,
that's what I
right?
mean.
Chicago or New England, not too sure. So we'll see what we get. But the bigger side of things, though, is the or no, not the Seattle Seawolves, who,
Need a
again,
win.
to the same sentiment of what San Diego is facing, they need a win. Seattle loss here and a San Diego win would guarantee that Seattle gets pushed out of playoffs. Um, which is crazy, crazy to think about. So should be interesting. I Both of these teams have been so hot. Both of these teams have just been playing so well, and I get it. Seattle just lost against the New England Free Jacks in what was a tough red card. Miami has looked great coming off of the win against San Diego. I think I'm going to go Seattle in this one, though. I really, really like outside of some self-forced errors, at least in the last match. I think Seattle has been playing very, very well. And I will be the first to say that I have just been not buying this Miami train. I should be. Maddie has hopped on. They could very well get the win this week. I think it's going to be a close matchup, but if I had to put my money on it, I'm putting Seattle with the victory here at home.
I think Seattle has just played some of the best second half of the year rugby out of any team. I don't see how you count them out here. I think they're going to be a scary team in playoffs, honestly.
Yeah.
That's one of those teams that I was saying earlier. You know, who cares about the regular season record? They get in there, that's a scary team.
Yeah. Yeah. And that sentiment largely rings true with anyone who makes the playoffs here. Like, I think we are going to be in
Well,
for
I'm
a
sorry, but the East, there's the Free Jacks look great, and Chicago would still suck to play, but But I think the West,
the
I
West
mean,
is on another
LA,
level.
Houston, Seattle, Utah, any of those teams I could see in the Shield, no problem.
Yeah.
If literally when any of those guys make it, nobody's gonna be going, really? LA made it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Because it's
don't blame
gonna
you.
be New England. It's gonna be.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. All right. Well, that being said, now that we previewed some of these matches, it is time, like I said, to put our money where our mouth is and talk a little bit about the TFR betting challenge.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, time for our TFR betting challenge presented by Betstamp. Betstamp betting made easy. Cash in on some free bets and sign up at sportsbooks available in your area using the link down below. We've partnered with Betstamp to give our listeners and viewers some deals to maybe hop in on some MLR bets here, which we've been talking about here for the season. It's been a whole lot of fun. Vandy has been taking care of business, for lack of better terms. He is plus $70 on the season. Been a rough couple of weeks though for you, Vandy.
yeah.
Lost a handful of chunk of change last week.
Yeah,
In
on
the
who?
mix
Sorry, what game was that?
last week,
Yeah, yeah. What game did I lose money on?
the Utah game, wasn't it?
Nope. Nope, that one
Okay.
won because I had Anthem covering. It was the Legion.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, that was this week. That was this week. I was saying before and the week before where
Yeah,
we
guess
both
what? I
got
bet on
burned
that
by
week too. The
Miami.
Legion.
But yes, you
Never
got
forget.
burned on the Legion. You did cash in on the Anthem covering the spread against your Utah Warriors by what, 0.5 points?
Doesn't matter. Covered.
It
Yeah,
did
and I
cover.
lost the other one by .5. Look at that. Damned if you do,
So
damned if you don't.
there you go. $1.31 in the negative. So you're at 70 on the season, like I said. Ryan's catching up. I'm only 20 bucks behind. So maybe it's my week to go all in to catch
Whoa,
up
okay,
with you
whoa.
on this one.
Playoffs count? Or is it
We
regular?
are going to go. We are going to include playoffs.
Okay.
We are gonna include playoffs.
Could we
So we got
include
some
the
time.
summer? Because then I'm up 120.
No. See, that was just practice run. I don't know what you
Yeah,
thought. I
yeah,
forgot
yeah,
about.
yeah,
And just to confirm, I believe my bet on the Toulon futures finally cashed in. I did not get anything on that one, so we're okay.
So,
So no, it's okay. We just I buried it under the rug, swept it under there, not talking. All right, fine. We'll put 1-0 here. You're 1-0 in the TFR betting challenge.
and up 50
I will say I would have been deep in the negatives this week because I put money down on what was it? The San Diego Legion one as no, was it San Diego? Did
Oh,
I
you
do
had
the San Diego?
LA.
I did LA. No.
Yeah, you did. Let me
Let
look.
me let's pull up the receipts. Let's pull up the receipts. I lost. Yes, I
Yeah, you
lost on
did
the
do the
lead.
Legion.
I did the Legion money line and spread. Doubled down.
Oh, you did do.
But but I said I can't be in the negatives this week. So then I went back on on the later matchup on the Saturday. I said, I'm going to double down on RCLA, them being underdogs against
You didn't send the
the
bet. Doesn't count.
it does count because I have
Doesn't
the receipts
count.
here.
You didn't send it.
RCLA, Old Glory DC. You can see it. I got the receipts right here.
Uh,
Either way, put me
under group
back in the
chat, you don't.
positives by 51 cents. So I'm at 49.11. So we're making it close here in this final regular season matchup. Vandy, for you, we don't have Maddie here, obviously, to give us his lines,
I'll give
but
you
let me
lines.
pinpoint some ones here. I do, if we see a weakened New England Free Jacks lineup, I do like the spread going Nola's way. Okay. I do like that.
I don't. I think
I
Vegas ain't gonna get that right. I think
you
even a
think
weakened New England team, I think would beat New Nola.
okay. Okay. Like I'm thinking if they're by more than a try underdog, I
Okay,
think they would.
yeah, I'll take that. But that's what I mean. I think they're gonna do like 5.5.
Okay. Okay. Um RFCLA Utah, I feel like is going to be a pick 'em.
I'm taking the over. The over is gonna be like 60, and I'm taking it.
That is a good play too. That is a good play too. The lines are not out yet. I was just checking to see whether or not Chicago, Houston for tonight, as of the recording of this podcast, if it is out. I don't believe it is. But we will probably have some bets coming in on that. San Diego, Old Glory, DC. Old Glory is going to be favorites in that one. I think I'm staying away from that matchup.
Yep, already said it.
Houston Anthem.
Under.
I think to Vandy's point, who's been hitting the covering of Anthem, especially with the possibility of a weakened Houston side. I think
Yeah.
anything more than 20 points, like we saw against Utah, where it was at 22 and a half, I believe. I think that would be nice to
Nah.
see. Um, I'm very interested to see who Seattle and Miami is. And I would honestly pick straight up the money line for the underdog because I think either team could win this one.
Yep. I think just based off of if they roll out a normal lineup, you're gonna have a 3.5 point favorite for Seattle just because they're at home.
Okay.
And I think I would still take that. I
You would
think
take them
actually I
winning.
wouldn't do the spread. I would just go money line Miami.
Miami. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I think. I think I'm going the underdog. Whoever the underdog is in that matchup, I think I like that. I think the
But if they
value
do
will be there
something crazy and they put like a 5.5 point spread, I'm taking it.
for
Take it.
Seattle,
Yep.
like for the favorite. Yeah. Okay.
No, for the underdog. Like
Oh,
I'll
for them.
take Miami covering 5.5.
Oh, gotcha. All right. Well, hey, we got some interesting, tasty matchups coming up this weekend. Again, get some free bets here. It's never too late. Might be the last regular season matchup, but you can hop in on some of the betting action here heading into playoffs. You can
Bet
do that
playoffs too.
by checking the link down below. Partnered with Betstamp to give our users and listeners a deal here at Sportsbooks available in there are again TFR betting challenge presented by Betstamp. All right, Vandy. Hey, congrats once again. Let me give you one final thing here. I'll give you one final applause. Listener League champion, first time Listener League champion.
Look who
And
came and joined me.
oh,
Come on.
is it
Come on.
Mini Vandy? Mini Vandy's here. Louis,
Little
you're gonna
champion.
go
Come on.
come celebrate the championship with your dad
Come over
to
here.
rub it in a little bit more.
Look at
That's a
that
beautiful
camera
thing.
right there.
Mm-hmm.
Your daddy beat everybody he played against in fantasy. If you could say one thing to those people that lost, what would it be? One thing. Like try harder next year, get good. What do you want to say?
Loser.
Oh, ouch. And that includes me.
Ah, you know
Louis.
what? He's not so humble in victory.
No kidding. No kidding. Well, hey, for Vandy, Devin Vandy Vanderpool, for Louis Vanderpool, for Maddie out in Cancun, I'm Ryan Yee. Congratulations to all of our league winners. Congratulations on an awesome fantasy season. But don't worry, we'll be back next week for another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. See you then.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.